This is an introduction to the expressive form, printmaking. I am Michelle Brighton-C, Master Teacher, Visual Arts. Welcome. So, what is printmaking? Have you ever stepped in mud outside and trekked through your parents' house? And you leave that print of your shoes as you go along? Think about that while we go through the lesson. Now, there's a definition that I can share with you. Printmaking is the art of transferring an image from one surface to the next. Yes, it's an art. Now, there are many different types of printmaking, and I'm just going to go down the list, and after I'll explain. So you have what we call relief printing. Some persons might say relief block printing, but I'm going to explain block after this. You have incised or intaglio printing. There's planography or lithography printing. There's serigraphy, and you'll never believe what is serigraphy. And there is monoprint. Now, let's start with the relief block printing. Now, a block or a plate, as we call it, is where the image is. That image that you wish to transfer. Now I'm going to deal with the relief. You have done geography, I'm sure, and you hear about the relief and contours of the land, where the land rise and fall. Well, the relief block printing is like the rubber stamp. When you put it into the ink, stamp it on paper, that's the area that is risen off the surface. And everything around that image or those lines are etched away. So that part of it is recessed. So it's the area that is relief on the block, that is the relief area on the block, that is transfer. So that is relief block printing. Block. These are known as block, as I said before, but they're otherwise called plates. And as you hear me go along, I'll use block or plate interchangeably. Now, there are many different types of relief block, but I'm going to talk about just three quickly, just three. One, originally wood block or wood cut, where the design is etched into the wood. Next, there is the linoleum, or we shorten it and we say lino cut. And the other is calligraphy. Stem word there is collage. This is a sample of the collage, where things are pasted on the surface, painted over, and then ink is applied and run through a press. Now, incise or intaglio block printing. Intaglio, it's spelled intaglio but pronounced intaglio. Yes, incise or intaglio. Now, where the relief block, where the areas that is raised off the surface that's printed, for the intaglio block printing is the areas that's recessed. Now, have you ever seen those movies like Heist, where they try to steal the money plates from the bank? Metal plates looking similar to this. So, money plates looking similar to this metal plate. Yes, this is a metal etching. Take out a dollar note out of your pocket, anything. What is it now, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, just take it out. Look at it closely. You're going to see some intricate lines and dots that make up the image on that note. You thought they were just painted on? No. They were printed on with plates similar to this. Now, the metal plate, to get the etching on the metal plate, it goes through a process where you use ground and acid to etch into the metal. But there's another type of etching as well. There's something that's called dry point etching. Can be done on metal as well, or this is a plexiglass. If I hold up a paper behind it, you realize that this was actually a print. So that's etching. You get it? Ink, remove the excess ink, run through a press. and to transfer the image. Now, planography or lithography. The planography or lithography is done on the lithography on the surface of a stone, usually a limestone. It's grinded down really flat and go through a process with acid and grease, where some areas are made to repel ink and the greasy area attract the ink. So when it goes through the press, did I mention press again? When it goes through a press, the greasy areas with the ink would be transferred. Planography is done similarly on metal. Now, serigraphy. Remember I talked to you about serigraphy, that you would not believe what is serigraphy? Who doesn't like a designer t-shirt with your favorite logo on the front? It is done with simply this. A screen printing. That's what's used to do serigraphy. It's simple, creating stencils from whatever material, and it's adhered to the screen. Yes. And ink is forced through the opening of those stencils to create that design on your t-shirt, or if they're doing it for fine art, serigraphy. Now, the last one, monoprint. M-O-N-O means one. Have you ever spilled ketchup on the surface of the counter and your parent look and say, "Why did you do that?" And you took a piece of hand towel and you laid it over the ketchup. And you'll see where the ketchup gets soaked into the paper and you remove it. You know that you can't get back the same pattern that ketchup make on that surface again. No. Something similar to that for art, where the artist use a very smooth surface, probably a piece of ceramic tile or glass or plexiglass or plexi surface, create their design, lay the paper on top to transfer, pick it up, and they will go again. They'll try and reproduce the same image, but that's what makes it a monoprint. No matter what you do, they'll never get it back exactly the same. So that's what makes it a monoprint. Now, preparing for relief block printing. Oh, did I not tell you? I'm going to be showing you relief block printing today, a sample of that. So, before you start any printing of anything, you need to select suitable material. And one of the first things that you need to select is your block or plate. Those two words, that's where the image will be on the block or plate. So I have a block or plate. Here in my hand is a liner block, sample of a liner block, but there's a substitute. Many of us out there in the high schools, we use shoe plastic. Oh yes, shoe plastic. That behaves the same way as the liner block. Not only do you need your block or your plate, you need something to etch into it. Shoe plastic, yes, this is a substitute for the linoleum block or the liner block. It's cheaper, yes, more affordable, because we know that art materials tend to be a little expensive, so we're always looking for substitutes. So this is the shoe plastic. It's pliable and it works the same as a linoleum block. It's darker, yes, but we have ways around that. Now with your block or plate, you're going to need something else. This is the lino cutting tools. These instruments actually help to carve into the block. Carve away image into the block. Now they come with different heads, and each head is a different type of gouge. I'll give you some research to do, but I'm going to say that right now I have the line gouge in, which is a smaller gouge. And there's a U gouge and a V gouge that help to take out larger surface area. So you can go and investigate, do some research, find out how it works. And I'm going to be doing a small demonstration for you to see how it works. Okay? So let's move to the demonstration now. Before we move to the demonstration, there's a few things that I did not mention. I have my block, I have my tool, I am going to need ink. This is a water-soluble printmaking ink. You're going to need the ink. Water-soluble, for students, it dries quicker, and you don't want to wait like a day or two before it properly dries on the paper. So the water-soluble is best. This is not a roller. A lot of us call it roller. It is called a braille. Works the same way. This is what's used to transfer the ink from one surface, and you roll it onto the next. Okay? Great. You're also going to need a smooth surface like a plexiglass, a plexi or glass surface to roll your ink. Some artists prefer to do a sketch before on paper and transfer it to the plate. And you're looking on this dark color plate or block wondering, how am I going to transfer this? Well, for the linoleum block, they use a carbon. You know the black carbon, easily seen, but you can't do that here. So you can use the dressmaker's carbon. It comes in many different colors, including white. White is not really a color, but we're going to say white. That can be used, or you use a white pencil crayon because it's a bit waxy, and you draw your image here. Either way works, and I'm sure you're going to find the best way to do that. So after you have transferred your image, now you're going to decide what's the best gouge to use to remove areas to make sure that your design come alive. So I've already started on this block, and I'm going to just take off a little bit more to show you how I actually hold the tool. I'm going to show you how you use this tool to carve your image into the block. Now I'm going to start with the line gouge. That's the smallest gouge in your carving tool. Important thing to note is that you hold the pointed edge away from you. And you cut, you can use it and guide. You can use the finger as a guide, but never in front of it. You can rest it on top. So more than one reason why you want to use the line tool first. This is where you're going to outline your design if you need to, before you move to another gouge. So you take out small areas first. Remember, safety. Move it away from you. Now I'm ready to change this gouge. It comes with the other tools right in the handle. And I'm going to select a wider gouge. I'm going to use the U gouge. It's shaped like a U. Why am I using a U gouge? Because the U gouge will actually take out more surface area. It's going to take away more surface area for me. I hope this is not stuck. So, there we go. You loosen up, and we take this out. It doesn't want to leave. So, the important thing here is that you know which gouge you want to use at any time. You don't want to start taking out large areas before you actually outline your design. Yes, and I did say outline. So I'm going to insert the U gouge. I'm going to put the line gouge back here so I don't lose it. Safety. Safety first. So here it is. So here I am using the U gouge, taking away larger surface area. Remember, don't go too deep and don't go too quickly either. You don't want to spoil your design. See? Much larger pieces other than what the line gouge was doing before. I'm just going to go again. I know I have some more work to do on this plate, so I just really want to demonstrate how you use the gouge carefully, away from the body, in according to your design. So, I'm going to pause. Yes. So I've carved out some area, so I'm ready to test what the block looks like. So before I test what the block looks like, I want you to pay attention to something. This isn't organized by chance. It is done deliberately. You have two stations here, which must be free from clutter. Over here is my inking station. And over here is my printing station. This is where the image is transferred to one of these paper. And you don't want any debris on your hand or anything there that would adhere to the plate or on the paper that would smudge it. So let's go over here. So I'm just going to do a quick print of this plate. Remember my water-soluble block printing ink on my plexiglass with my brayer. Let's start here. A little bit on the surface, and I'm going to start. Now this action here, it's not called rolling out the ink, it's called leveling the ink. So when you stop hearing that pasty sound, you know that the ink has been distributed properly on the brayer. It shouldn't be sliding away either. So I'm waiting to hear it sound a little sandy and smooth. It's getting there, it's getting there. Ah, that's much better. So you're getting that even sound. And I'm going over here to ink this block. Go back here, retrieve the ink, go to my block. It is not so important to go in one direction, right? You can go in many different directions, but important thing is to make sure that all four corners of the plate has ink, evenly distributed. So this is my testing plate. I'm going to leave my inking station now, carefully removing the block. And I'm coming over to my registration area. My registration area is marked out. The surface on which I'm going to lay this plate is outlined to the same dimension of the plate it's going to be transferred on. So I'm going to place the plate here. Good. And I'm going to get my paper. Now this paper is pretty thin, it's bond paper. I'm doing testing that, so I'm not going to go use too thick of a paper. All right? So I'm going to align this paper to the registration surface properly and just let it fall and guide it with my hand. Stop. Okay, you give it a little love and attention and then you move to the next step, which is where the actual transfer takes place. Now I have here a wooden spoon. No, I'm not cooking, neither am I baking. I'm going to use the spoon as a tool to help to transfer the image. Now I put my fingers into the bowl of the spoon and I'm going to rub in a circular motion. This circular motion is called burnishing. So let's see how it works. Circular motion. And when this hand stops, I move the next. When you do that, prevent the paper from shifting. You don't want the two hands to be working at the same time. So this is when you don't have a press. So this is the hand method. So to make sure that everywhere is captured. Remember, this is just my test print as well, but I'd still want to see it printed well on the paper. Now the reveal. So you might be wondering, what is this doing beside me? Can I tell you? Even the wooden spoon have a substitute. This looks similar to one of the furniture. Yes. A friend gave this to me. He got it from a friend of his who had a place that they built furniture. That's a carpenter friend of his. And it works the same way. It has a smooth surface and somewhere I can rest my hand. So it works the same way. So if you don't have to go out and buy a wooden spoon, you can find a piece of wood around the house, something wooden, that has a smooth surface that won't shred your paper while you burnish. Why don't use metal? For those persons who do science, what happens when you rub metal over and over and over again? Start to warm up, don't it? Don't feel so good on the fingers. So I'm going to reveal. Okay. So this is my test. What can I say about it? These ears still look a little gray, meaning that the plate needed a little more ink. And I'm not yet finished with the design. I'm seeing the image emerging from the plate. I don't know if you can recognize a face and an arm. This lady was pregnant. So this is my test. So I'm going to print another plate for you. So let's rest this here, let it dry. Leave this in this place. I'm going to print another plate for you that was completed. This was completed by a student of mine, Xavier Wilson. Hello. So he gave me permission to use this. I'm going to take it over to my inking station. Remember, I'm going to load up. Got to load my braille. Leveling the paint. Remember, it must sound not plaka, plaka, plaka. It must sound smooth. Nice and sandy, even sound. It's not there yet. Once you get in that pasty plaka, plaka, plaka sound, it's not ready. I hear it coming, yes. Great. Got to move on the plate. See why we need an inking station separate from the registration, because these things happen. The braille went over the edge and touched the surface. These things do happen over the inking station. So I'm noticing that I'm going to need to charge this braille again. Not enough ink on the surface. I'm going to go again. Listening for the sound. Nice. Here we go. You know what's so sweet? It makes a similar sound on the plate. So you know that ink is reaching the plate. So I want to do one that covers the entire plate. So you know, if your plate was not inked before, like this one was washed clean, sometimes come out a little gray. It's not a bad thing, but you may need to ink again. Now the print that I did before, it's called my artist proof. I'm going to talk about what we call an edition shortly. So we're taking the paper, surface, this, registration surface, this, same size, put it here, allow it to fall, give it a little love with the hand. So this paper is thicker, you notice? More permanent. So while I am burnishing my plate, let's talk about an edition. Now the edition comes out of a series of prints that you do. So while I'm burnishing this block here, I'm going to talk to you about the edition. Now your edition is a series of prints that you do. You want anything in your edition to look as close as possible to each other. So sometime an artist would do about to get a good edition of about 5, they do about 10 or 15 prints and select the best 5. Those that didn't make the edition, it's like what we call it before, the artist proof. Okay? So now for the CSEC exam, you'll be required to do an edition of 3. So it means that you're going to have to do at least 5. You can do up to 10 and then select the best 3. And there's a way that you label them. So if you have 3, there's 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3. Now the 1 out of 3 is your best one. And I'm going to show you what it looks like after this. I'm going to peek and see what is happening there. All right, I think I can remove it now. Here it is. So let's talk about this piece just for a minute. By the way, it's called Alone Time. That's what Xavier called it. He was doing a series of work based on the theme for his journal that speaks about being alone. And can you figure out why he would call this Alone Time? You ever see that perfect mango on the tree and you sit there for days and wait for it? And when it's ready, you just reach up and pick it, you and that mango alone, right? This is what I think this means. But we're going to look at other things about the piece. Let's evaluate the piece, looking at the elements and principles. It's printmaking, it's an artwork. You must use elements and principles when you're designing. And considering the fact that you're using printmaking, which focus a lot on the use of lines, you want to make sure there is balance. Balance with the different types of lines. Balance with your image, that something is in front versus things that are behind. So you're getting a bit of perspective here. This is very rhythmic with the use of lines as well. Nothing is overpowering, but there's a spot there of emphasis. Deliberately leaving that area a little darker so your eye rests in that area. So you're getting a bit of emphasis. And I'm sure you can pick up other elements and principles in this piece of work. Now grab your journal and make the entry now. And that's what you're going to do for your pieces. So now that you have your journal out, we're going to do the last part of the critical analysis, which is to judge. Because we had described it before. We did some analysis, and we interpreted the piece. You know, alone time. Now let's judge the piece. Is this a good piece? So let's look on the formal qualities of the work. Is it a good piece? I would think it's a good piece because there is a good balance of the elements and principles here. Nothing is overpowering. We can see the point of emphasis. The lines are used, the lines are varied in such a way that it allows the part of the hand, it allows the hand with the mango to be the point of emphasis in the work. So I'm saying that this is working formally, right, for formal elements. Now, how do you feel when you look on this piece of work? I can actually feel what the artist is trying to convey, just reaching out for that mango in his alone time. Imitationalism, the hand looks like somebody's hand, and this shape over here mimics a mango. So yes, there are some elements in here that imitate what happens in real life. So this is my judgment of the piece, and I do think it's a fairly good piece based on that statement. Now, is it a finished print? No, there are still some gray areas here, so I know I need to go back and do some more prints. When it is done, it looks like this. Don't leave. Here it is. This is 1 out of 3. Remember we did discuss that? 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, and 1 out of 3 is the best of the 3. See how lovely it looks with the intense pigment on the surface, so you're getting the background, the middle ground, and the foreground. You're getting this coming forward in the composition. You're getting the nice balance. Who saw that there were leaves there before? Right? So that's all I'm going to say about this print for today. We're recapping. So what is printmaking? The art of transferring an image from one surface to the next. For example, relief block. Remember your rubber stamp? This was the block that printed this piece of work. Yes, I saved it for last. So this is a complete print from this. There are different types of printmaking. You learned about, of course, the relief printing. You did colorgraph, lithography, and don't forget serigraphy, where you use a screen to do fine arts printing. Metal plate, you'll never look at your money the same again, knowing that this is what you use to print your money notes. You learned about the process. You learned that you need to have a inking area and a registration area. And when you're using the hand, you need to burnish with a wooden spoon or a substitute. Please don't forget when you're using the tool to practice safety. Cut away from you. I have a few horror stories, but I won't share them with you. This is a very rewarding expressive form. Many times is what you get at the end. We call it happy accidents. But what's happening here is no accident. Most of what's here is deliberate, and that's what you want. And remember to journal, document. Document your process. After you have done, do your critical analysis, right? And just go for it, okay? Have fun.